A review copy was provided by Capcom. Before I start, I want to say that I collected all of the statistic upgrades and reached the recommended level for all the exosuits, including the player max rank of 51. The things I'm missing are a handful of cosmetics and the final achievement to kill 100,000 dinosaurs. I played the game for about 48 hours and only managed to kill 30,000 dinosaurs, so grabbing that final achievement would in theory take me an additional 80 hours. As for the cosmetics, they require also more grinding, and I didn't get the ones that you have to pay for. I usually try to review games once I reach 100% completion, but for this review, the grind and insanely high that I just decided to go for 99%. Hopefully that's adequate for a lot of people, but that's why the review says 100% kinda. So let's get to the review. Exoprimal is a brand new multiplayer P vs P vs C third-person shooter that has you engaging against deadly dinosaurs using high-tech suits. It sounds insane on paper because it is, like Dino Crisis on speed, but somehow the developers crafted a pretty profound narrative to convey the lunacy of what you're engaging with. The gameplay is a repetitive loop of intense combat challenges that repeat constantly, and it won't appeal to everyone. Despite the issues, Capcom has something that could evolve into a new franchise if they play their cards right. So what's the narrative here? You're not just killing dinosaurs en masse using powerful robotic suits called exosuits. Instead, you're trapped in a time loop, the result of a powerful AI that is replaying an apocalyptic day called the Bikatoa incident on the island of Bikatoa. This is the day dinosaurs rained down from portals and began terrorizing the world. The day is on repeat, and you have to relive the same day over and over again as the AI, known as Leviathan, gathers combat data in what it calls the war games. Despite being a simulation, it's incredibly dangerous, meaning death in the arena means death in real life. Your goal is to survive the loop and the war games until you can figure out a way to get off the island. As usual, you uncover the company that you're working for, this time called Albius, isn't who they say they are, revealing a sea of classified documents that uncover dark secrets and why dinosaurs are appearing across the globe, all of it involving a new energy source, cover-ups, and mutated aggressive dinosaurs. The narrative is told in two parts. The first is general cutscenes that play as you complete matches. The game will always alert you before a major event by a meter shown before every match. The second is through the analysis map, which is the small parts of the story that are unlocked as you play. These are optional, but paramount to understanding the grand scheme and showcasing the development bond between your crew. You have the tech expert elders, you have Majesty, who's your top exopilot and weapons expert, Sandy's your robotic AI companion, Lorenzo is the team leader, mechanic, and pilot, and then there's you. Your name is Ace, and you're just basically an empty shell with no personality, a conduit to ferry the story along. You're a customizable avatar, and that's basically it. The options are limited, so don't expect Street Fighter 6 levels of customization, and you only really play out mainline cutscenes where the most of the character is just covered up in a mask. Instead, the voice of the avatar is determined by what exosuit you're wearing. If you put on a male exosuit, the voice is male, and you put on a female exosuit, the voice is female, which I think was a little like they should have had options for both suits having both male and female options, but that's just my opinion, or allow you to choose between a male or female AI voice regardless of suit, but that's again my opinion. The game does rush through a lot of profound moments to give you a very speedrun feeling of camaraderie, unlike games like Mass Effect, Gears of War, or Final Fantasy, which foster that bond over hours of engagement. However, the moments where they do matter are done tastefully, mostly involving crises of fate or what-if situations. I can't show them because they're kind of deep into the story and offer a lot of sensitive information, but nevertheless, it is pretty well done of how they showcase these characters having their mental fortitude tested. Nevertheless, I also wouldn't be surprised if you forgot their names from time to time, because the matches between cutscenes, they tend to be about 10 to 12 matches per cutscene. You'll naturally probably forget their names until they finally tell you who they are. It's clear the writers did care about what they were creating here, and it shows in the game's various twists and the grand reveals, leading to a solid conclusion that opens the gates to something more than just a multiplayer experience if Capcom decides to continue the series beyond a strictly multiplayer game. After all, Capcom has shifted other franchises to accommodate other genres, such as Lost Planet 2, which became a multiplayer cooperative game, or Resident Evil Outbreak, which was a multiplayer survival horror game, if you remember that back on the PS2. The game does have an issue of repeating prior story missions. It does allow you to re-experience these missions since this is a multiplayer game. Certain players will have to engage in these matches by mandatory. So of course they're going to put whatever players they can into the story missions, seeing that bots are secondary. If you do get bots, they are functionable. So don't expect them to just wander around and do nothing. So it's possible to replay critical story missions, but only at random, which I was open to since the boss fights in this game are pretty extraordinary, but they are rare. Nevertheless, if you end up in a critical story moment, I would advise that you turn off your microphone because chances are the players who are in that match, at least from my experience, have already played it and they'll likely reveal story details that you likely don't want to hear. Overall, the narrative offered enough interest to keep me hooked to the end, with a huge boss fight to wrap everything up, and it does have a solid conclusion that can lead up to another game if this title does well. Something that is pretty shocking to me is that it did end with a climactic boss fight, which is rare in the AAA industry. Either way, Capcom is one of those companies that still fosters that tradition of ending games with huge boss fights. And it's definitely high quality. Overall, the story was serviceable and it had a really good twist at many different intervals within the narrative. Exoprimal is a P vs. P game at its core, even when set to P vs. E. A group of 5 players face off against another set of 5 players using exosuits. You can choose from 10 currently, 4 assault, 3 tanks, and 3 supports. You can choose whatever combination you want, but a balanced team is strongly encouraged. Each suit has 1 default weapon that cannot be changed, 3 unique abilities, 1 customizable weapon on a timer, and an ultimate ability that charges over time. You can swap between suits at any time, but the process requires you to remove your current suit, leaving you vulnerable in your pilot-based avatar mode, and then equip the new suit once the meter fills up. So you definitely have to decide whether it's worth the 3 seconds or more, depending on whether you can do it right away to swap between the exosuits. If killed, you can immediately swap the suit upon respawning, but if you are revived by an ally, you will have to go through the entire process manually. Every suit can be equipped with 1 optional weapon called a rig, which has 6 options that you unlock through the course of the game. Each of these offer different advantages such as a long-range rifle, shield, healing, high jump, mid-range blade, and a short-range drill attack, giving suits an option for a field they are lacking in. Modules are perks that can be upgraded to level 5, which there are 10 being defaulted across all the suits, and 6 exclusively linked to the suit's unique abilities. The unique ones are the hardest to obtain since they require you to reach level 16 with the suit to access all of them, and with the suits leveling up individually, be prepared for a grind. And it's kind of hinted that Capcom plans to add more options because you can go beyond level 16. Capcom did an exceptional job with the suits designs. I can't really debate against this. Each has a unique design that mixes together science fiction and fantasy, even if one of the suits looks like Genji from Overwatch.
I need healing. I need healing. I need healing.
Each exosuit has an array of customization options, although most of them are just color changes with about 1 or 2 that look truly unique. The same goes for weapon options. Other custom options include decals, and you can equip 3 of them on your suit and 1 charm that's equipped at the back of your suit. You can earn these custom options by Bitcoin. No, not the cryptocurrency, the game's in-game money, and you can buy the items straight up, or you can get them through loot crates. As far as I can tell, you can't purchase these loot crates, so that's a win, but you have 1 or 2 options. But by the end of the game, I noticed that the game was just straight up giving me money instead of the actual items. So I think by the time you reach endgame, they decide just to give you a bunch of money to buy whatever you want. Capcom also includes a battle pass that has exclusive content not available in the game. Honestly, I feel like this is a step in the wrong direction considering this is a box title. Yeah, it's on Game Pass, but launching it this way isn't winning any favors, especially considering that there are some unique skins only available through direct purchases. Capcom did give me access to the premium Season 1 pass, and through this I was able to unlock a lot of new options that weren't available to other players. And looking through the menu, you can see that there is a lot of unique customization options available in the premium tier, which I can understand if a player feels like they've been cheated considering they spent $60 on this game and there's another option they have to purchase for. Now let's talk about the actual war games. The matches are separated into two categories, player versus player and player versus environment, with cross-platform support. 5 players on each side are placed into a lobby with the AI Leviathan giving you a summary of your previous match, whether you won, lost, or did particularly good in a certain field. Here you can swap out exosuits and see the other team's makeup before the match begins. Each match is separated into combat and objective challenges that are randomized in each new match, but shared between each team during the match. The goal is to complete your objectives before the enemy team. This involves killing specific dinosaurs, guarding objectives, escorting NPCs, or defending a point. After each challenge, the AI will tell you where you're going to move and whether you're doing faster or slower than the enemy team, with red silhouettes of the enemy team fighting showcasing their performance as well. Once all the objectives are completed, you're placed into one final round where the player versus player or player versus environment are separated and decided. If you're in player versus environment, you'll face the same challenges as before, but in P versus P, you'll engage with the enemy team in an objective-based game. The player versus environment is subjective since players can invade the other team using something called a dominance. This is a special item granted to both teams, but is determined based on your performance. If your team is performing poorly, you'll get the item earlier, and if your team is doing well, you get it later on in the match. With this, one player can take control of one of 3 dinosaurs and invade the other team. Your performance determines whether you get the weaker of the predatory dinosaurs or the stronger. Well, you do get a Triceratops or a T-Rex. I forgot the third option, but the third option is the weakest, but it goes a third option, the Triceratops, and finally the T-Rex. Whether this should be a player versus environment option is up for debate since it's meant to serve as an option to give the losing team a fighting chance. Another way the game provides a boost to the losing team is a gold dinosaur. When killed, this upgrades the enemy team's enemy pool to the hardest option for a limited time. If you happen to fall too far behind, the game will forcibly push you to the final event. At first, I thought this was a cheap push, but if the team is losing this badly, it's just a way to give you the option to fight back in some way. And this is only given to teams that fall way, way behind where there's no chance that you'll catch up. But by the time they put you into the final portion of the match, chances are the enemy team has already won because they would have about a fifth of the objectives already completed. So chances are this is just for you to try and regain some experience, because even though you get pushed to the final event, you won't lose out on all the experience that you would have gotten from those other smaller challenges. As for player versus player, you'll get domination, escort, collect the energy nodes, and a variation of rush where players break power nodes by charging up a hammer by killing enemies. Players are encouraged to slow down the opposing team by fighting them, with the game modes encouraging this. It definitely leads to some exciting combat encounters. However, the developers did a poor job of revealing a lot of these options. I played a good 70% of the game before escort was revealed to me as an option, and even a new map option. For context, you need to complete 55 matches to beat the game, so it took around 30 matches before some of the game's content was revealed. This doesn't seem like a big deal, but by match 10, I was already going through the cycle of, is this all that is? And I can see players getting bored by match 20, because again, it wasn't until match 30 where the variation started to pick up with more powerful variants of dinosaurs, more story missions, everything started to put together, so you definitely have to engage a lot with the content before it starts to get even more entertaining. And I know that's kind of a lopsided argument. It's the classic argument, well, the game gets better after this amount of hours have been invested, which I venomously disagree against. I think that the game should be taken off running and introduce new elements as the game goes on. This is not to say that Exoprimal is boring in the beginning. It's just as exciting. It's just that the repetition does start to weigh in at match 10, and I can see players being like, is this all there is? And then waiting for just new content to be revealed. Granted, the gameplay is exhilarating, like I stated. There's a lot of fun to be had here, but if Capcom intends to keep this alive as a live service game, as it kind of shows with the Battle Pass, they need to add a lot more variation, or probably mix up the first set of matches to offer some sort of new enemies, or include escort into that variation pool. Maybe down the line they'll decide to add that stuff. The same goes for enemy variety, like I touched on. You'll face a lot of the same dinosaurs, with more options coming further down the line in the form of Neo variants that are far more dangerous and require perfect synergy to take down. These things can one-shot you if you're not careful. I can see future content offering more variants of existing dinosaurs, and considering humanity has discovered over 900 variants of non-avian species of dinosaurs alone, Capcom has a lot of options to choose from. How they animate that and make them into believable creatures is another story, but regardless, they do have a pool that they can choose from. Exoprimal does have a lot of really great story missions. These are rare, but well worth experiencing. I won't show them for the sake of spoilers, but the boss fights and boss challenges are exquisite challenges that have both teams fighting together. And just because you have a 10-player team doesn't mean it makes it easier. In fact, the game ramps up the amount of dinosaurs you'll fight, the Neo variants, and a lot of the combat challenges require you to really utilize the team's abilities, such as tank shielding, support healing, and DPS assaulting, because a lot of these things will one-shot you if you don't use every one of the exosuits' best abilities. In fact, a lot of players would just go in guns blazing and never pay attention to certain patterns or get behind tanks to shield them from high damage attacks. So just be aware of that, since the game does offer limited spawn-in options. I didn't run into a match where all the spawns were exhausted, but it can happen. That being said, expect a long grind if you hope to 100% the game, or near 100% the game like I did. Players will need to reach level 16 with each suit in order to get all the modules linked to them, not including the cosmetics, and kill over 100,000 dinosaurs for one of the achievements, which is the final achievement that I require. Just in context, like I stated earlier in the review, I played the game for about 40 hours and was only able to execute 30,000 dinosaurs, so yeah, not exactly the most ideal situation. It puts the serious achievement from Gears of War to shame. I get this is a game meant to play over the course of months, but honestly, these Gears of War style achievements where you have to kill a large amount of enemies, I feel like needs to be stopped. It's just a tedious grind. In terms of control, the game runs and plays very well. Capcom has an extensive history of refining their third-person combat systems, and it shows. The game plays like a quick active shooter, and while you can't take active cover, it does encourage you to use your various suit abilities and work as a team. You need cover, have a tank absorb the damage. You need healing, there's support, and DPS takes care of the enemies that need heavy damage. Players do have access to one final item that, as far as I can tell, are completely randomized, such as a barrier that only you can shoot through and not the enemy team, an automatic cannon that shoots in one direction, a pylon that can heal or increase damage, or a platform that allows you to take the high ground. You can only carry 2 of these items at a time, and they're dropped by dinosaurs. They don't seem like much, but an effective team can use them to turn the tide in battle. I didn't start using the items until my endgame affairs against very challenging teams. Now, in terms of non-verbal communication, it's very bare bones. Apex Legends redefined the entire game and landscape with its ping system, and anything less than that ping system is seen as lackluster in comparison. And here, it's just a basic comm wheel, so no ping system, which definitely sucks. At the end of the match, the losers are eaten by dinosaurs, which I think is a nice touch, and an overall score is provided. An MVP is chosen, and you're given a detailed report of your experience gain. You'll level up in 2 categories, 3 if you have the premium pass. The first is the player's overall level, which grants you mostly coins and loot boxes, and then the other is your suit level that gives you access to new modules. It's definitely an addicting loop of matches, experience, and repeat in the process, but without a decent number of variations, Exoprimal's biggest issue is the tedium of repetitive matches, especially since completing the game opens a new match that isn't available at the moment. It's called the Savage Gauntlet, and it's supposed to be the most elite option of matches, but that's coming at a later date. Capcom has promised more updates as the game goes on, and they're all free, so the game can see resurgence with each new update, but definitely Exoprimal's biggest issue is the lack of content once you complete the game. You've seen mostly everything, and you'll just play for the sake of either completing achievements or trying to deck out your favorite exosuit. This is definitely Exoprimal's strength. The visual and audio design is exceptional, with everything drawing you in for some intense action. Everything looks flashy and incredibly cool. I was able to keep track of everything going on thanks to the clean interface, and I never experienced any slowdown or crashing despite hundreds of dinosaurs on screen alongside with the chaos that was happening. All the flashy particle effects, all the players attacking individual dinosaurs, seeing the opposing team attack other dinosaurs. It was complete chaos, and yet I was able to just keep track of everything. That being said, my chat was on the opposite end and didn't really know what was going on during certain sections, but I feel like for the player itself, I never saw a situation where I was completely lost of what was going on. I think when you're playing the game, its focused camera allows you to be more generalized of what's going on, as opposed to if you're watching the game, your eyes are everywhere, as opposed to when you're playing the game. Now, considering that the AAA industry tends to let us down with technically flawed games, Capcom is one of the few companies that release their games with actual quality assurance, ensuring that they work. So, good on you for Capcom, because it's truly shocking that I was able to play over 100 matches in this game, and not once did I ever have any disconnect, slowdowns, like any type of technical issue that you would expect from a multiplayer game at day one was not here, and I am truly shocked by that. I don't know how it is for everyone else, but again, 100 matches, no drops, no slowdown, no match pairing, no anything, and that is amazing. Whoever did the stability for this game deserves an award or a bonus. Congratulations, really good job. I was expecting this game to have a terrible day one launch, but man, they really nailed it here. So good on you for that, Capcom. You've been killing it, not only with your games, but also your stability. Thank you for actually showing that you care about your games. Exoprimal is definitely a fun and addicting third-person action shooter. It has a great loop of high-octane combat and offers a lot of unlocks for you to gather. However, and this is the biggest however I can state, it desperately needs more variation if it wants to keep the player alive. Again, for myself, I was drawn into the narrative. I think it's a really solid story, and I was also really into the combat loop. But I can see players who get into 10, 15, 20 matches and being like, is that all? Where is anything else? When is the next big reveal going to come? Is this all the enemy pool? That's a real issue. I saw in the early Steam reviews, this was something that a lot of people were debating whether it was worth it, because they thought that the beta was exactly what we got, which isn't. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that starts to get added once match 30 gets played, but I can't really, I can't blame anyone for stating that after match 10, they're going to wait until more content gets released. By the time I finished the game, only less than 5% of people have completed it. So I assume that people are playing it in batches, either with friends or, the player base has actually been pretty welcoming. I didn't really see any major leaves even during lopsided matches. So the player base tends to stay within the games for a long period of time, showcasing how fun the game is. Even when you're losing, you're still having a good time, which is an insane achievement. If you can have fun while you're losing, yeah, you really have something special here. Again, I really hope that they in the future evolve this game to more than just a multiplayer game. This game is begging for a Left 4 Dead or World War Z type cooperative experience, or heck, they can even go for a single player experience where you swap between suits, or you have an Armored Core situation where you craft your own exosuit. They have a lot of things that are going for them right now, and it's really solid. It has a really solid edifice at its core. honestly, I just had an incredible time with Exoprimal, and I think it's a fantastic third-person shooter that you should definitely give it a shot, especially if you have friends. Like, yes, it's the age-old argument that everything is fun with friends, and I agree with that, but this game is particularly very entertaining, and I loved it. Honestly, it's one of Capcom's finest multiplayer games, and I really think that if you give it a shot, you'll have a really good time. So I will award Exoprimal the highest 7 out of 10 I can. Now on my scale, 5 is average. I think this is above average, 7 out of 10. Really good game, highly recommended, and I hope you enjoyed as well. If you liked the review and you saw it to the end, thank you so much. Remember to like, share, and again, thank you to Capcom for providing me a review code. Till next time, AMHarbinger signing out.